Always do it on my own, so I gotta get through it. And the only thing I know is to love what I'm doing. Never give up, never slow, till I finally prove it. Never listen to the no's, I just wanna keep moving. Keep my head up when I act, head up, that's a fact. Never looking back, I'ma keep myself.
All right, welcome back to the podcast. Today we are talking with Jeff. How do you say your last name, Jeff?
Heveron.
Nice. Well, it's nice to meet you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. So I know you're kind of interviewing me about the photography. I do a lot of different things, but for photography, I've been doing that for most of my life, on and off. And in the past 2 years, I decided to do it professionally. So I grew up. My mom, my aunt, my grandmother were all photographers, so I was always around the equipment. I got to use their equipment, and, I got to go into my grandmother's dark room all the time as a kid. Really enjoyed doing that. I did photography in high school. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. But, it's always just been a hobby for me. And, on top of everything else, I've been a web designer and marketer for 30 years, and I was like, I've been doing this a long time. I think I want to change, and so I decided to do the photography full time, and it's been great, man.
Well, that's good. So business is good. So what other kind of stuff do you do?
Well, as you can probably see here, I do music. I'm a music producer. I do mixing and mastering. I don't do recording, but I do mixing and mastering. And then I also do video work too. So I make music videos. I make product videos, client videos, things like that. So it's a lot of fun. I mean, those are the main creative outlets that I have. I do still have a lot of my marketing clients, and I do everything from website management and digital marketing for them. Some print work too. I've been doing print work for a long time as well. But phasing that out a little bit and really trying to focus more on the photography and videography full time. It's really cool. I mean, like I said, I started doing it as a hobby when I was a little kid, and I've just kind of always continued to do photography. I think one of the things that I like is I get to capture the world the way that I see it. I get to look at something and not only just as it is in that moment, but, I get to think about, how am I going to edit this? What am I going to do for it? So if I'm doing a wedding, I'm seeing things as if the photo was already edited, opposed to just what I see in the camera. So, see it in my head. It's, I guess it's just the creative brain,
Yeah. Creative minds, they work in mysterious ways, so to speak.
It's for damn sure.
So, I'm kind of curious about the photography side of things. My wife likes to take pictures, and what all goes into it? Because she's tried explaining it to me, but I don't quite understand a lot of it.
Yeah. Well, there's really only one thing that goes into photography, and that's light. Learning about light, learning to master light and control the light. So whether that's adding and removing light in the camera or adding and removing light externally, those are really the main things. So you've got, I'll start with the first thing that I usually adjust is my shutter speed. So if I'm looking at a moving subject, chances are, if they're moving pretty fast, I'm going to be in the, 1/800th of a second range. Or if I'm looking to do a long exposure, like trying to get, star photos or something, I'm going to be bringing that way down. So it may be like 25-second exposure or something, even longer sometimes. So the shutter speed's the first thing, and then the next thing that you need to focus on is your aperture or f-stop. And that's one of the most confusing things to people because it's actually reversed. So the lower the f-stop, the wider the aperture, and the higher the f-stop, the smaller the aperture.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and what that's going to do is allow you to get that really cool depth of field. So, where you've seen those photos, where you've got the subject really well in focus and the background's blurred, that depth of field is created through the aperture, and how, tight or wide it is. And then the last thing is the ISO. And the ISO is going to allow you to bring in more light. It really, opens things up. The downside to ISO is that the higher you go, the more noise it's going to let in too. So you're going to get a lot of grain and really grainy photos. So that's why people pay so much for their equipment. Better cameras, better equipment is going to allow you to use a higher ISO and low light. I mean, there are plenty of reasons why the more expensive camera is better, but
right.
Certainly that's one of the attractive things to people. If I could, and this isn't possible, but if I could shoot a photo at 20,000 ISO, then I could practically take pictures in the dark, and it'd be amazing.
Wow.
So it is possible without getting tons of grain. So it's all about controlling that light. And then, the external factors can be having what's called a speed light on the camera. I've got one right here. So this is one of my speed lights, and I can put that right on my camera, and it'll give a nice flash. And it's Kelvin balanced so that I'm getting a decent light. But I can even add modifiers and filters. Like this is a modifier here for it. It's magnetic, and I can get other pieces that will diffuse that light in certain ways. Then you've got strobes, which are another type of flash that is off camera. You'll see that in a lot of the photo studios when you see the big diffusers.
Yeah.
And the flash going off. That's a strobe. And then I even use LED lights. I use video lights for a lot of things. So, even the light behind me, it's giving that little bit of blue. That's one of my video lights.
Okay.
And so depending on the photo or the scene, I'll use those. We always try and get natural light whenever possible. But there are certain times when you just don't have the natural light, or you need to supplement the natural light to get rid of shadows in someone's face. For example, mine's not really well lit right now, but if I've got my lighting coming from down here, I'm going to get all these weird shadows up here. Or if it's over here, I'm not going to get this side of my face, just that side.
Right.
So, knowing how to get the best exposure possible before you even get into editing. So those are pretty much all the main factors that go into photography. The creative aspect is the much more difficult aspect to teach because you've got certain rules, like the rule of thirds. So, if you imagine like a tic-tac-toe box there, you kind of want to keep photos on one of those lines, or subjects on one of those lines. Typically you'll see a lot of photos in the, lower third section somewhere. That's a general rule. The Fibonacci spiral is another photography rule that some people use. So having things lined up or working within the Fibonacci spiral there. Then there are times when you want to break the rules. There are things that you want to do. So, for example, if I was to take a photo, I'd probably want to take it this way so that there's space in front of me, because if I do it the opposite way, that almost creates a claustrophobic effect. But sometimes I want to create that claustrophobic effect. Sometimes I want to do something like that. I actually do work with Terra Manor, one of the haunted houses here.
Oh, wow.
I've taken a lot of their photos. So yeah, so when I'm doing like scary stuff like that, like I want to create that scary feeling. I want to make it as scary as possible. I don't want to have all that beautiful open space in front of me, or in front of the subject. So there are rules, and then there are ways to break the rules, and that's where the creativity really comes in. Um, Looking at a scene, looking at how things line up. Um, you really want to do things in a certain way. Let me see if I can pull a photo up and show you on here that I took actually last night. I did a photo shoot down at
Okay.
Center in the Square, and as I was looking around, I saw that the stairs and the light both had these spirals. So I went over to a place where I could get that. So they kind of lined up in a way, and they kind of encompass the picture. So I'm always looking for little things that I can do. Maybe it's a reflection. Maybe it's, lining things up a certain way. Even portraits and things like that. If there are things in the background, I want to try and keep those either level or, out of the way. I've taken pictures where it looks like there's a giant pole coming out of somebody's head, and that just looks horrible. So you just move 2 feet to the left, and
Yeah.
no more pole coming out of somebody's. So there are definitely a lot of different ways to get creative and look at things. You know, like I said, it's really the hardest thing to teach about it, is the creative aspect. But if you stick to the rules, understand why they're there, and then learn when you can break the rules, you tend to get even better photos. I personally spend a lot of time looking at other photographers' work. So I will look at other photos, see what they're doing. Most of the time, it's pretty obvious what they're seeing, but then I'll look at their techniques and how the shot was set up, why the shot was taken. Are they there to create an emotion? Are they there to, show a cool, piece of light going across someone? And that always gives me inspiration and ideas for my photography
That's very
too.
cool.
So, in every event, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It really is a lot of fun. Every event's different. Every shoot is different. And I still love to go out and just
Hey,
take
there's
photos
nothing
for
wrong
fun
with that,
too.
and I would imagine by critiquing other photographers and then going out and just randomly shooting, taking pictures, that's gotta improve if because there's always room for improvement somewhere.
Absolutely, absolutely. I just bought a camera about a month ago, and I've got probably
Oh wow,
15,000 photos on it already that I've taken. Which it's a lot. I mean, that's a lot more than most people take in a year. So, but for me, it is about that practice. It is about, you know, learning from mistakes and improving, whether it's looking at somebody else or even looking at my own work and going, man, I really could have done this different. Could have done, I should have leveled the shot. I, I shot an event last week, and I swear every picture was, a little crooked and a little off. So I spent, the week, just playing around with my camera and making sure that when I'm holding it, I'm holding it straight and not a little bit off. Because, this is pretty heavy. I mean, it's a decent weight body, and this lens is just
yeah,
filled with glass. So, it's definitely pretty heavy, and naturally, I kind of want to hold it a little bit off center, opposed to holding it straight. Not a huge deal because I can always fix that in editing, but the problem is that when I rotate it back, I'm going to crop the image down. So, really, really always, looking for little things like that to improve on, little things to get better at. Um, Watching these other people and their shooting styles, what they're shooting, the different lenses that they use. I've got, lenses that cover pretty much every range, but sometimes you'll see somebody shooting on a specific lens and it's like, man, those photos are so cool. I love that. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll look into getting that lens next.
So as far as the editing goes,
Yeah.
what all goes into that? Because I know that can be somewhat complicated.
hmm Yeah. So I've been using Photoshop for about 30 some odd years. I started using Photoshop at version
Wow.
3.0, I believe, which is many, many years ago, a long time ago. And, Photoshop is great for some of the more intricate things that you're doing, but for editing photos in general, I typically use Lightroom. And the thing that I like about Lightroom is it's designed for photographers. So it's got all the tools that, that I need there. And what some people do is they go out and buy presets for their photos or for Lightroom, and they use other people's presets. Instead, what I did was I created hundreds of presets for myself. So everything that I'm putting out there pretty much is all my edit, my work, and I don't ever batch edit photos. I mean, I think I've done it maybe once, the whole time I've been a photographer. Every photo that I take and I'm going to deliver to a client, I look at, I personally edit. I usually start with the preset because starting with the preset, there's 15, 20, 30 minutes of time that I just saved by using the preset. But then I always go in and adjust the details, and it's usually, everything from brightness to saturation to adjusting colors and all that. It is very in-depth and detailed, and it's very, complex the deeper you get into it. But I love learning, and I've spent, I don't even know, 8,000 hours, watching tutorials, learning, and practicing all this stuff. So, if there's something that I want to do that I don't know how to do, I usually go out and, try and find a tutorial on it. The biggest downside of that is that there's still a lot out there that I can learn, trust me, but it's harder to find more advanced tutorials. It really is. Most people are making general tutorials for, everyday photographers or new photographers. So they'll go over a lot of the basic stuff. They'll go over a lot of the intermediate stuff. And then you can find tutorials at like Adobe or one of the companies that makes editing software. And they will go through specific things in some of their tutorials. There are people out there that are putting out more advanced things, but it's much harder to find than, how do I use Lightroom or
Right.
how to use the color sliders or something like that. So, yeah, and people don't realize, you typically are editing. If I'm A to Z doing a photo, I'm going to touch almost every slider in there most of the time. I want to get the perfect colors if I can. I want to adjust everything the best I can. I know a lot of people will do enough and then put it out there and let it go, but I really
That's
want
really
those photos to look the best they
Yeah,
can.
and I would imagine that
So
with
it's
it
a labor of
being
love.
a passion, you do a lot to keep the creativity up, and with anything that you love, it's not really work, and you always want to improve because there's always room to improve.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's the way that I look at it, both personally and professionally. I mean, I'm always looking to improve myself. I'm always looking to, do new things in that regard. And with my photography or any of my business work, I try and get better. I try and learn new things. So yeah, I was an alcoholic and drug addict for most of my life. I spent 17 years as an alcoholic and addict, and 14 years ago I got sober, clean and sober, and in that process I actually was and am part of a 12-step program that really taught me a lot about doing the work, and what a difference it made. So I've transferred what I've learned from my personal life and been able to bring that over to my photography and other aspects. It's so difficult to get started on projects. It's so difficult to start learning about yourself or doing work in different places. But once you get to that
Yeah,
point where you start enjoying and learning, then everything else gets easy. It's I enjoy the
that's
learning
it. The
process
the
more than I
journey
do,
is always
getting
more
to the end of it.
enjoyable than getting to the goal. So,
Yeah, exactly.
I know you're on
Exactly.
Facebook. Are you
Yeah.
on Instagram as well?
So, yeah, on Instagram is at Jeff Heveron, and that's JEFFHEVERON. I'm sure you'll have that in the video. And then I've also got a website, which is just jeffheveron.com, and I showcase my portfolio in there, both video and photography work. And there's, there are a few different sections in there. I do sell some fine art photography and some artwork. Um, I shouldn't say artwork, photography. It's all photography, but
Very cool.
yeah. So those are
Well,
my media
it was
outlets and
definitely
how
very
people
nice
find me.
talking to you. And I learned a lot.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely have to try to do this again at some point. Absolutely. Thank you for taking time out to do it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me on the show. It means a lot.
All right. Have a great night. You're
Of
welcome.
course.
Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye.